things either are happening to you or you're in control of it. So getting ahead of it, how empowering is that? How liberating is that, right? Because now you have a choice as opposed to being forced to make a change when you really just don't want to.
The beautiful thing about a coach is a lot of times we create that space for you to slow down and to really start to unpack your why.
Welcome to Career Compass, mapping your future. Visit yourcareerrevolution.com today to get your free guide on the benefits of working with a career ownership coach. Welcome to Career Compass, the show dedicated to helping you map your future as you reimagine and reclaim the life of your dreams. Thank you again so much for tuning in to another episode of our 10-episode season dedicated to the 10 steps to your ideal career. As you may know by now, my name is Tamara Loring and I'm with the Entrepreneur Source. And today, organizational psychologist and executive coach Dr. Mike Smith and I will be chatting about, oh my gosh, we love this topic, how embracing a lifelong learning mindset is essential not only for career adaptability, but for satisfaction and fulfillment. If you recall, last time we spoke about how a career ownership coach can really help you open up your mind to new possibilities, things that you didn't even know existed. Today, we're going to take that one step further by looking at why learning is the cornerstone to your journey of discovery and how it can transform not only your career, but absolutely your life. As a matter of fact, if your mind is open and you are ready to learn, why don't you go to careercompassshow.com? Let me say that again, careercompassshow.com, and take your pod assessment, your possibilities, options, and dreams assessment. So, Doc, as always, super excited to have you here. Why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Thank you very much, T, and hello to the audience and all the listeners. Appreciate your time. And this is going to be a really good one. I'm excited about it. So thank you for the invite as always.
You are very, very welcome. No, and I agree. This is exciting because, there is so much power to lifelong learning. I cannot think of a time where it's probably been more important than ever. And, as you think about the evolution of humanity, because again, things are changing so much. And, the next few years are going to change at warp speeds. I mean, what is that called? Moore's Law, right? When I look at some of the statistics that a research team presented to me, they said, based on the Future of Jobs report from the World Economic Forum, so WEF, that by 2027, 83 million jobs are expected to be lost. Now, they're not all going to be gone. 69 million new jobs will be created. And this is due to the adoption of technology, AI, automation, right? So, things are changing. It's not like new jobs aren't going to be available. They may not be available at the rate as we're losing jobs. But the other thing that was interesting that they said is that 44% of workers' core skills are expected to change in the next 5 years alone. They say that by maybe 2030, up to 375 million workers, that's 14% of the global workforce, will need to switch occupational categories due to automation, right? So think about that. If you have a career, maybe you even went to school, maybe you have a degree in something, chances are that if you are part of the 14% of the global workforce, you may need to switch careers completely. So one of the things that I am so grateful for are people like you, Dr. Mike, and the network of people that I'm surrounded with, because I am with growth-minded individuals, people who have a mindset, one of continuous learning. And when I think about the coaching methodology that we use, it is built on EAD. What is EAD? It's built on education, awareness, and discovery. So we're constantly challenging ourselves and our clients to continue to expand our horizons and to embrace and explore new opportunities. Look, learning is not just about formal education. It's really about having a curious mind. It's about curiosity. It's about openness. It's about a willingness to grow at every single stage of your life and your career. So with that as a backdrop, Doc, I would love for you to comment on that.
Well, yeah, I love what you said, right? So the continuous learning mindset is the thing that allows you to be a continuous learner, right? So there is a separation between the two. So it starts with the mindset. And I love the statistics that you gave. And that kind of tees up a quote that I always use, right? So change is inevitable, as we all know. So we can either change before we need to or because we have to, right? And if you look at those two, changing before you need to is so much more easier. You're so much more in control. You get ahead of it. You stay aware. You look at the writing on the wall, right? And then you be proactive versus putting your head in the sand or letting fear take over, just kind of staying with the status quo. Then you hit that point where now you change because you have to. And that is so much more uncomfortable. It causes stress and anxiety and frustration and worry and doubt. So to maintain that mindset of continuous learning and just being open to the experience, the process, the benefits that come from having that new knowledge or that gained experience, right? It's so key to almost every aspect of your life, both mentally and physically as well. We talked earlier about the neuroplasticity of the brain. When you're learning, studying something new, embarking on a new journey that makes you think and look at things different, raise your level of awareness, change your perspective. That's just like a muscle in your body. When you're using your brain, you feel younger, more focus, more clarity, more energy. So it really, really is a huge, huge part of growth, satisfaction, longevity, and joy.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there that you said. I mean, I love the fact that you just even highlighted the fact of proactive versus reactive, right? Things either are happening to you or you're in control of it. So getting ahead of it, how empowering is that? How liberating is that, right? Because now you have a choice as opposed to being forced to make a change when you really just don't want to, right? So I feel like it's important, not just for our freedom, but for us to feel empowered and feel like we get to say we have uh, the opportunity to really shape and mold our future. And so, one of the things that I love to talk about also is how coaching and learning actually go hand in hand, right? Coaching really fosters a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. One of the things that I love, Brian Clemmer wrote a book many, many years ago, and I love the title. It's called If How To's Were Enough, We'd All Be Skinny, Rich, and Happy. And that's always such a great reminder for me that knowledge and education alone is not enough for most people to take action. And look, myself included, right? Sometimes I am such a consumer of self-help books, of podcasts that talk about what could be possible, and then I realize I have all this knowledge, but why do I not take action, right? Because sometimes it takes courage to take action, right? There's this four-letter word that comes in the way, right? Fear. And having to coach myself through, what does fear stand for? What if it's only false evidence appearing real? What if I'm not being reckless, but what if I had enough education and I have enough knowledge and I did the learning? Now I just need to take baby steps and make an informed choice, right? So, what I love about learning and coaching, a coach can really help you challenge your fixed mindset and your beliefs, things that you don't even realize that are you're holding on to so tightly, right? Just because you think something or you believe something doesn't necessarily make it true, right? For me, paradigm shifted when my coach caught me and said, T, wait a minute. Do you want to be right? Right? I was so convinced with the way I saw the world. Do you want to be right or do you want to be successful? And boy, did that comment stuck me in my tracks because finally I realized I was not having an open mind. I was not open to learn. I had this fixed mindset. And once I was willing to be vulnerable enough, willing to be wrong, that's when my mind opened and I could start learning new things. And you know what, Doc? That is when things finally started to change for me, when I was starting to see possibilities where before I could only see roadblocks in front of me. So, how does this saying go? And I don't even know who gets credit for this, but it goes something along the lines that it is what you learn after you think you know it all that really counts. And this is where a coach can really help you see things from a different perspective. And they can challenge you to see not only obstacles, but how these things could actually be I guess, the roadmap to something even bigger and brighter.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said a couple things there too. And I think the biggest thing, fundamentally is starting with our why, right? A lot of times, and you know this, right? The daily rat race, right? The tempo that you're in, the grind, just the habitual behavior. It's so easy for us to fall into that, more of a closed mind, that fixed mindset that you were talking about, because that's kind of where we live most of the time, right? You build habits, you build routines, you get comfortable with where you are with your knowledge because you know enough now to do your job, to keep pushing through and have the little wins at that level. But like you said, the beautiful thing about a coach is a lot of times we create that space for you to slow down, to pause, and to really start to unpack your why, and then make or help to create the path of lifelong learning that is relevant to you. It aligns with your why. It gives you a sense of purpose, right? So, one of the things we're not talking about in a growth mindset is just randomly doing stuff just for the sake of doing it, right? There's got to be a purpose to that lifelong learning that allows you to stay relevant and current in whatever industry or career field you're in. It also allows you to stay flexible, to be able to pivot when you need to, and not to be stopped by those roadblocks or those barriers, right? As an example, we were talking earlier again about I just got several new certifications that are going to support me in my coaching and my business consulting. So even at this age and at this stage of my professional career, I stepped out and got some new certifications, but they're aligned with what I get to do and have the privilege of doing every single day. So they not only made me feel more confident in the value I can bring to my clients, but it really brought me up to date on some things that I hadn't even really thought about and wasn't aware of before. Right. So again, it was, my coach that kind of pushed me to step out and just expand my knowledge and my skill set. Right. So there is a lot to be said about this continuous learning mindset and keeping it meaningful, right? Making it relatable to what you're doing. And that could be even what you all do, right? A new career, exploring entrepreneurship. The coaches that you all have do a really, really good job of helping unpack that alignment. What is possible? What would work for you as an individual? What would make you tick and come alive on the inside? Right. So that's the other piece to what a coach can do when it comes to being open. They really help you discover and unpack a whole nother level of awareness that a lot of times we just don't even think about.
Oh my gosh, I love it. One of the things that you said that struck me, right? It's not just learning for the sake of learning. I mean, some people enjoy that and they could be fun there too, but there's an absolute difference between passion and purpose. So congratulations on going out there and like you said, even at your age, right? Like we're never too old to learn and you're not that old by the way. But I love that you went out there and you're not just settling and you're not saying like I've got all these credentials, I already have my doctorates, I've done all these great things, and what more could I learn? No, you continuously push the envelope and you really um, strive to become better every single day. And there actually, I think you and I were talking about the fact that it's scientifically proven that it's actually healthy for you, right? So one of the things that I want our listeners to understand your passions and understand your purpose. I was listening to Darren Hardy the other day. Many of you may know him, may even be following him. But one of the things that struck me when he said, "Look, there's a difference between what you are passionate about and what your purpose is, because passion wanes, right? What I'm passionate about as a 5-year-old versus a 15-year-old versus a 35 or 65-year-old will be different. But what gives humans meaning is finding purpose. So learning isn't just about career advancement. It's about staying engaged. It's about becoming energized. It's about feeling fulfilled throughout your life. So I would love for you to comment a little bit on maybe the neuroscience and even the health benefits of lifelong learning.
Yeah. So again, the lifelong learning, there's even research out there that shows that lifelong learning does actually, I mentioned this earlier, but the longevity, right? It keeps you in better shape. It keeps you mind sharper. It gives you longevity in terms of being able to think, feeling better. Sometimes when you have those days where your mind's groggy or you may start to feel like plateaued, just the lifelong learning, stepping into something new, not only does it give you that neuroplasticity and exercise your mind and truly keep your brain young, which then spills over into other parts, but it also has the side effects of increased self confidence, self esteem, knowledge, growth, right? So you don't feel stagnant, you don't feel stuck. There's just something it does to your psyche, and to your overall health and even the way you carry yourself, right? The way you show up. When you have that lifelong learning, you don't get in that mindset of feeling stuck or is this it? And kind of settle into that pattern. So there's so many benefits to being a lifelong learner. And I think the biggest one is that mental longevity, right? That as we get older is so important. I mean, you know, me and my wife go for a 5 mile walk every morning, right? To kind of just stay in shape. And then we do some weights and stuff too. But if that's all I did, I didn't do any lifelong learning. I didn't do any reading. My physical body would be doing good, but then I would start to see a slow drift of the mental side, right? So it really is holistic and your mind, and there's again a lot of studies out there on this, your mental well-being, your mental health affects everything else, your physical health and the way you act, the way you feel, the way you show up, the way you sleep, right? So there's so many benefits to lifelong learner and just continuing to exercise that so important muscle that we have.
Oh my gosh, I think there's so much for our listeners to take away from that today, right? Because it's really learning occurs when you step outside of your comfort zone. So embrace feeling uncomfortable because that's when you will feel accomplished. That's when you will feel confident. That's when you'll actually get excited about learning something new. So if there's anything that I hope you guys latched onto today is the importance of investing in yourself, not just for a career change, but for your general well-being. So there's some practical tips and tools, and maybe Doc, you could add to that I can think of that people can do to invest in themselves every single day, right? And it doesn't. I'm not talking about hours and hours of studying or making it a grind, but it's like you said, while you're going on your walk, maybe listening to an audible book, maybe listening to a podcast, maybe even just clearing your mind and thinking about what's possible as opposed to just being a human doing. Become a human being, right? So it could happen with even 5 minutes a day. Just make it a habit or dedicate an hour a week. Block it out on your calendar to do some learning, to do some reading, and take an online course. Maybe it's even going to a networking event where you are with growth minded individuals, people who have already accomplished what you aspire to do. There are so many outlets. And the thing is, it doesn't need to be something that you get to one day. Like one day I'll enroll in a course, I'll go to the local college, or I'll do that. No, it can happen in small little pieces, bite sized pieces. Information and education has never been as readily available as it is today. Or even, like I said, sometimes it's not just about the information. For me, it was actually aligning myself with a coach who helped hold me accountable to what I said I wanted, but I didn't have the courage, or I always had an excuse why today was not the right day, right? Maybe later, maybe next week, maybe next month, right? When things feel more aligned, when I'm ready. But guess what? You will never quite feel ready. So the best way I've learned to do it is by taking baby steps. Can you commit to just 5 minutes every single day? As a matter of fact, super simple. Write down just the one thing that you're curious about and just the one action that you will take this week or maybe even today, right after you listen to this podcast, to explore what could be possible.
Yes. So, two things that I would like to throw in there real quick to wrap up. And everything that you said is amazing. Those were all great steps and great tips and easily accessible and easy to do, right? So, one of the things that the late, great Zig Ziglar always used to say is it's the start that stops most people. right? Just that fear of even taking that first step. So don't let the start stop you. And then the second thing is, remember this: when it comes to the growth mindset, learning something new, refreshing your skills, you're not starting over from scratch. You're starting from experience, right? So never forget that. Just build on what you have. Continuous learning doesn't mean you scrap everything and try to start over. You just add to, fine tune, and continue to build your toolkit, right? And your skill set. So you're always starting from a place of experiencing, leveraging what you already know, taking your knowledge, your life experiences, and just going to another level. So that should give everyone a certain level of comfort to squash that fear and step out.
Oh, I love it. The other day, I read a quote or I heard a quote, and I forget again who said it, but it was something along the lines that the amazing thing is not that I finished something. And I think a runner said that, but the amazing thing is that I started, right? And I think that's what you were basically saying here. So visit careercompassshow.com and go and start the possibilities, options, and dreams assessment. That may just be the spark that you need today or this week to explore what could be possible. Thank you again for tuning in to today's episode. Doc, one final thought that you would love to leave our listeners with, what would that be?
I would just say again, just have the courage to take the step and you will not regret it.
Very good. Just have the courage to take the step and you will not regret it. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Until next time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please go to yourcareerrevolution.com and request your free guide to the benefits of working with a career ownership coach. Thank you so much for listening.